Of course. That was pretty decent. Yep, okay. Probably just a tick better. Looks like, well, I don't know, Fug and Strike were a tick apart, were 8 apart, so. Yeah, that first green-yellow whammy wasn't great, but I think the following two were pretty good, and the front end was probably about as good as I can get it, so I'll take it. This is a really strange case because the PS2 version has less acts, 3 compared to 4, but I actually think it's the much more interesting path. Just on the grounds, basically, that there are essentially 2 tick acts instead of 1. Now, that changes a little bit with the upper bound activations, where that eliminates 1 tick act from the PS2 version, while this version remains unchanged in that regard. So with the upper bound acts, they're more comparable, but I also really don't like reverse tick acts in general, so I'm not too torn up about not having to do one here. But yeah, it really is just a strange case overall. Essentially, three of the 4 acts in this song are completely free. That first act, you know, this is the tough thing about Xbox. Maybe 360 emulation is farther along than I think, but I haven't looked into it all that much. It really would be a lot to like set up just to test these 10 or so songs. I don't know if you could get DLC on 360 emulation either, so that would obviously increase the value, but again, not sure if it's even possible. So yeah, I haven't even looked into 360 emulation to see if TAS is even possible for this stuff, but it makes discussing these songs a lot harder in comparison. And so point being, the first act, I really don't have any like conclusive data to bring to it. I gave it a few runs. One of the runs I felt like I basically had as close to frame perfect whammy as I could get off that second phrase, in particular because it's just mucked up by the hopos in front of it. And I had a really good front end, and I was still like at least 3 frames away from the green, watching back in frame by frame. And the frame that I strummed on I missed, so yeah, I was possibly like 3 to 4 frames away, even with like, again, what I thought was very solid whammy and a very good front end. So it kind of just gave up on that. If it's anything like the PS2 first act, which I don't really have any big reason to think that it necessarily correlates, the only thing that's similar really is the tempo. But if it is like that act, the PS2 first act upper bound was a 3-frame window with buffered first frame whammy on the second phrase, and without it, it was a 1-frame window. So if it's anything like that, I am not going to be going for that. But yeah, mainly just wanted to clean the song up because I got sick of looking at that big ugly 18th on the global rank for this song, because the adjusted score was not at all calculated correctly for some reason. I would expect it to be the other way around, honestly, because of the upper bound on this first act. The PS2 adjusted is like 200 behind. Yeah, it's just strange. I don't really understand what was going on there, which is partially one of the reasons early on I stopped caring about adjusted score in all cases except for very direct comparisons like Jessica, Misirlou, Heart-Shaped Box, that kind of stuff. And cases, you know, where like Extreme, where it's basically the exact same thing, it's just a movement of the first act. That song is basically identical, except for the fact that the first act double in the 360 version yields 400 more points. So in that regard, it's actually a big increase, but that's dependent on anybody hitting that act, which is, in the PS2 version at least, the hardest act in the song by a lot. So anyway, this is done. First on both stops, pretty cool. And again, don't have to look at that big ugly number. So Where?